edition of the Business Hangout from Plus Real Time at the moment. Coleman Carpenter is going to be with you in about 8 seconds, but remember thebusinesshangout.com. Coleman, what do you have to say for yourself?
I'm sorry for talking over you there a few seconds ago, Randy. But, I thought you introduced that very smoothly and professionally. And then I jumped in with two left feet and ruined the whole thing. But anyway,
not a problem.
Today we're talking about photographers and photography from a business perspective, and particularly on how photographers can utilize Google Plus, or have utilized Google Plus, to promote themselves and their work. And I'm sure at some point we'll touch on such issues as copyright and things like that. But it's potentially a very fruitful discussion. To join us at the moment, we have Justin Hill from Brighton and Richard Muscat-Azo.
Just say Richard, it's easier.
I call him Richard, yeah. From Malta, I believe. Is that right?
Yes, Malta.
Excellent. I'm hoping that we will have one or two more joining us during the course of the next hour. So let's launch straight into it. Richard and Justin, you're both photographers. You both have a very active presence on Google+. Richard, would you like to start and maybe outline what kind of photography you do, and also how you then promote it on G+?
I have been. It's probably one of the things I've loved more on Google+. There are quite a few interesting topics in terms of, topics I have to read about, but the strongest point for me is the visual aspect. I'm seeing so many photographers online at all times, and, just you can sit down and see your stream flow by with lots of wonderful photography. I think it's a plus and a minus. The plus is definitely learning much, much more and seeing so many different kinds of photography and seeing so many good photographers out there. And the minus is probably the same thing, seeing so many good photographers out there and saying, oh my god, what am I ever going to do to get to this kind of level, I'm not really a professional, no, I'm not a professional photographer, so I do it for the love of it mainly. And I think that makes quite a big difference, because I'm not really using Google Plus to try and promote my services as a photographer, so I'm just enjoying it over here. It makes quite a big difference, I think.
Okay. Justin, how about you? Are you a professional photographer, a keen amateur?
No, I wish I was. I wish I was. Oh, hang on a minute. I'm just getting my coffee delivered. Look at that. Here we go. Cheers.
Live on air.
See, I'm not a professional photographer, but I've got servants delivering coffee. No, I'm not a professional by any means. I wish I was. It would be nice to make, it'd just be nice to make money out of anything, to be honest, at the moment, because it's such a struggle. But back in July, somebody sent me an invite to Google Plus back in the day when it was invitation only. I thought, all right, what's all this about? And jumped in on it, expecting my artwork to get noticed, because I'm mainly, or was mainly, doing cartoons and 3D work and illustration type stuff, and thought that it might be a vehicle to get me noticed that way. Mm-hmm. And just happened to post and upload some of the photographs that I'd taken whilst I was out in Thailand, because I've got a Thai wife and spend a lot of time out there. And before I knew it, people were commenting more on my photography. And I thought, all right, I'll post some of the shots that I've done locally around the Brighton area here in England. And I got even more feedback. So really, G Plus has, well, I'm a photographer by accident, thanks to G Plus. And it's absolutely it's crazy. It's all pluses to me. Slightly going with, but against what Richard just said. And the plus for me is over about 9 or 10 months, I've now over 12,500 following me, which is brilliant because it means normally people wouldn't have seen my work at all. It means people do see my work, that's absolutely fantastic. You get nice feedback. Anybody that does anything, it's always nice to get good feedback on it. And the other plus is, which was one of the minuses, sounds crazy, doesn't it, using the same point. One of the minuses that Richard said is you're in there with all the professionals that do have work that blows you away, and it's nice to be counted in. It's like a big, it's like a bargain bucket, really. We're all in there together. You're never quite sure what you're going to see each day. I might find one of my shots is suddenly posted right up next to one of the big professional shots. But everybody talks to each other, and I think that is very rare. It's something that you don't normally get on any other social network or website, or even seminar or anything else like that. If you're an amateur and you're out there with the professionals, you normally have to queue up for ages just to have a quick word and tell them how much you like their stuff, and they're like, yeah, and that's it. Whereas on here, people really are talking to each other, they're mixing with each other, and that's mind-blowing.
My minus point was, one, first of all, it's quite tongue-in-cheek. I wasn't being, completely serious about it. And I wasn't taking that aspect of having so many professional photographers. It was more a case of, seeing their work and thinking of, oh my God, mind-blowing stuff out there. How am I ever going to get there? It's not a question of how am I going to get there in terms of, professional level, but I want to make pictures as good as them. So negative but positive at the same time, I have to push myself harder every day to try and keep up with the quality that's available on Google+.
Richard, I know that you, I think you recently posted something about equipment. I am in no way a photographer, but I do post photos like everybody in the world on Google+ and other places. And I'm doing that now with my phone, like most people, but I have an older camera. And I also have a pretty good digital video, a DV cam, that takes really good stills. And if I really want something good, it's got a real focus on everything. But it's still trash compared to a real camera. Let's hear from both of you, and you can start, Richard, maybe, about the cameras you're using. Not necessarily details, but just you are really using cameras, not like me with your phones, right?
Yes, I am. But I don't think it really makes all the difference. And that's something else I really found out is amazing on Google+, but one of the photographers I admire most on Google+ shoots 90% of her photos with an iPhone. And that's all. And the work she does is stunning. I'm actually, I don't know whether you know, sorry, I'm going to sidetrack the conversation slightly, but I'm interviewing on a regular basis one photographer a week on Google+ and carrying it on MediaTapper. And she's going to be one of the people I'm interviewing, in a couple of weeks' time. But she shoots exclusively with an iPhone, and most people would laugh at the idea of someone taking photography seriously with an iPhone. But as long as you can take a picture, as long as you can see what you want to shoot, and as long as you can frame it well enough, I think the equipment is relatively secondary. It helps having the $10,000 cameras and having all the most the recent fancy lenses, and having, if I could, if money were no object, I'd say thank you very much. But I think it's really a case of what you can do with what you've got.
Does it depend on what style of photography that you're
having more expensive equipment can help you land bigger clients, yes, to a certain extent, because if you shoot well enough, and if you're shooting for a certain level of clients, as in, I don't know, I can think of one particular or two particular cases where you'd need a more expensive camera, because you'd need more megapixels, and that is when you're printing in large format. So then, yes, the quality of the equipment does make a difference, because it's not only about how good the photo looks, but how good the photo actually is in terms of for print quality. And I don't know, if you're shooting fashion at a certain level, you will need a camera with decent megapixels and basically a good glass. But it's purely aesthetic, and that's the brilliance of, again, Google Plus, because you're just seeing them on screen, you're seeing them, you enjoy them when you're seeing them, and that's basically it. I don't really think the type of photography, you can get decent fashion photos with an iPhone, you can get decent landscape photos with an iPhone, and you can get bad landscape photos with the most expensive digital SLR available on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really a question of having the eye for the right photo.
And I guess to some extent that comes with experience as much as, I say, having the eye.
No, I think it is having the eye. I can't explain it better, and I think it is having the I don't know, the artistic touch, seeing something in a different way for one simple reason. I've seen photographers on Google Plus who started taking photos, I don't know, 6 months ago, and they really take photos which I wouldn't dream of, and I've been shooting for about 10 years. So there is something to it that is more than experience.
Okay. Coming back to Google Plus then, is there something different about Google Plus compared to maybe some of the other platforms that you might show your photographs on that makes them work better on screen? Justin?
Well, Facebook have now just started doing it where you can actually go full screen, but they've only really started doing that since Google Plus first. It was showing photographs. For artwork, photography, anything you wanted to upload and put in a gallery, looked much clearer, much bigger on here. When I say on here, I mean on Google Plus. It was, I don't know, it just looked glossier, looked more professional. Because quite a lot of sites, when you upload pictures, you are getting tiny little things, and you're squinting your face up at the screen, or you're having to get something that blows it up on its own so you can then actually see what it is that you're meant to be looking at. Whereas Google Plus pretty much nailed it right from the word go, which is why I think they got such a large photography community jumping in on it so fast and building up so quick. Because people could actually see what everybody was doing rather than having to guess, and it wasn't all pixelated, it was good quality stuff, you know.
Yeah. Richard, have you got anything to add to that? And is that your experience as well? Is there something different about Google Plus?
I think that's one, even though Facebook added the bigger, better light box when you actually click on the photo, I think Google Plus is still better because you get larger photos scrolling to your stream. So even without needing to click, you're really getting a better version of the photo. I already used Picasa before Google Plus, so that was a big help for me. I had most of my photos organized in Picasa, so uploading is really, really easy. And the one gripe I have was probably not being able to zoom into photos. So when you enlarge the photo, it's the photo the size, the size of your screen, but you can't go to 100% of what the photo size is actually, uploaded at, which is a bit of a problem. But you can solve it by trying to get the same photo on Picasa usually.
Okay. Do you worry about people finding your photos on Google Plus, downloading them, using them for whatever purpose, without giving you any credit or even payment if you're looking for that kind of thing?
Payment would be lovely, whatever I'm doing, to be honest. It's not a nice thing to do. I mean, to give credit, I think everybody should give credit where credit's due, really, whatever you're doing, again. It's just a polite thing, but that's how I was brought up anyway. Other people using it, yeah, I'd rather they didn't. But having said that, I think if you do anything on the internet and on any sort of site at all, it's very hard to police it. I don't think you can ever be 100% sure that your stuff is going on there and only you can see it or other people will see it and that it won't get misused in some way at some point. If you think your work's going to be safe like that, then you really shouldn't be on the internet at all. Same with information. I think once it's out there, it's out there. It's a bit like raising your own birds and then releasing them to the wild. Where they go and what happens to them is out of your control once you've actually released them. And when I upload photographs, sometimes I feel like I'm releasing them to the wild a bit with the internet. You know, once they're gone, they're gone. I still hold the copyright. It's still my stuff, but once it's out there, I'm sure there's. It sounds smug saying it. I was going to say I'm sure there's some of my work out there that people have taken off and printed out. I don't know. I really don't know. But in some ways, it's nice to think that maybe somebody has done that. It means they liked it enough to do that with it. It's better than what I was doing, which was drawing stuff for myself and taking my own pictures that nobody would see.
Richard, what's your view?
I'm pretty relaxed about it as well. First of all, I think there are two ways to look at it. One, it's nice to have your stuff out there, as Justin said, and used. So whether it's used, whether it's not, if it's used, it's better. And if the person who uses it has the decency to, ping you, say, listen, I've used your photo somewhere. That's nice. But what I don't usually do is upload photos which I might have a client for. So even though I don't send the photos, I do have clients for my writing and photography together. And then if I have an article which I'm trying to pitch to someone which includes a certain set of photos, I would upload certain parts of the set, but not the ones I'm intending, to give to someone to use. And then I give them to them for their use exclusively to start up with. And if they allow me, I'll upload as part of my portfolio, and then the risk is there. But it's a question of, if you're uploading content and if you, just like I listen to music on YouTube, I can expect other people to use my photos without paying me for it. It's, you win some, you lose some. As long as your work is out there and advertising you well enough.
Okay, that's good. So I guess then you wouldn't really consider watermarking your photos before you put them up or anything like that. It's not a road you would go down.
For me, I can't really see the point of watermarking. I know, well, I understand why people do it, but it's not for me. I can see why, an artist like Magritte or I don't know, Lautrec, or they'll do a painting and they'll sign it really small at the bottom. But everybody did then. That's what art was about. You'd sign it, you do it, you can digitize it, you painted it by hand, and it went out like that. But to spend, I don't know, 20 minutes waiting to get the shot right, the lighting right, you're setting it all up, you're doing it all, you finally get your shot, you get the image exactly how you want, and then you stick some writing right across the middle of it. That, to me, it sort of does away with the thing. If I was going to do it, I think I'd like to do a series that actually had the watermark there at the time. I'd have it on a big translucent sheet in front of the subject, and I would start photographing it, because then it would be an interesting series to do, because they are being watermarked as you're taking the shot, and therefore you're playing about to do it more and more. I quite like that idea, but I wouldn't add something afterwards, no, because I'm trying to create an image or a feel with a certain photograph, and to put my name across it, just it would ruin it for me. Therefore, I feel it ruins it for other people.
Yeah. Okay.
Sometimes I use a little URL at the bottom right corner, just my domain name at the very bottom right. Nothing big.
One of the I'm sorry, Richard. Go ahead. I thought you were done.
That's basically it.
I was just going to interject something about credits, which is that, and I've mentioned this before somewhere on Google+, but when you put a photo in, it would be nice if, whereas elsewhere in Google+, when you in your post, they often will turn a URL into a link. So if it has HTTP in it, it'll be turned into a link that you can click on. In the caption of the photo or the legend, whatever they call it, the description, they don't do that. There's no examination of HTML, and I can understand some reasons why that would be, but it would be nice if there could be a clickable link, and it would be even nicer if they added a photo credit. It would be optional. So when you're using a photo, it would be nice to be able to actually have not only the URL where you click to the person's Flickr, for example, but also a photo by thing that you could put in there. I often get it on Flickr, but I also do just searches on Google Images under Creative Commons. And ironically, when you do that, unfortunately, if you search for, I don't know, party or cocktail party was one of the recent ones that I searched for. Pretty obvious image, really. But as soon as you put it into Creative Commons, it gets totally unrelated stuff. I don't know where they get the information, but it had nothing to do with anything, most of them. Anyway, point being that when you do find a photo that you can use, and apparently it's okay to use it, you still are supposed to give credit for it. And it would be nice if they made that a little bit easier. It's a suggestion that I should probably formulate in feedback, but feedback, one has the impression that feedback is more for bugs and fixing things than suggestions, as it were.
I think that's worth suggesting. Anything that makes it easier for photographers to get their work out there and be comfortable about doing so, why not? Yeah.
Being as everybody on Google Plus is a photographer.
To some extent, yeah.
Almost.
We all have our smartphones and go around taking snaps of this, that, and the other. Might even share my picture of the bird that I took yesterday.
You should, because I would like to see. And Richard, do you have a couple of things you could maybe share and screen share? Because after all, we're doing this publicly, and it'll be watched after as well. If there's any example of anything, it'd be interesting. We're not trying to
screen share it, but
it's
why
built
not?
in.
There's a first time for everything.
Sure.
What happens here?
There's a thing called screen share. You need to bring up your photo that you want to share first, or on some screen of some kind. It doesn't really matter. On a browser screen or on I think you can share from an app window as well, Coleman, can't you?
Yeah, I think when you press the screen share button, it asks you which of the open windows that you want to show instead of your camera view. So whatever you've got it open on. Justin, have you got anything you want to share with us as well? An opportunity
I can do. I'm not sure what. Let me have a look. What I'll do, I'll give you an exclusive. I'll try and share something that I've not actually uploaded yet.